Well, hi to our friends in Australia, New Zealand, and the one joiner from South Africa. Early morning for you. We see some Panalytics members joining. A very warm welcome back. And some non-members, we're grateful to see you as well. And I hope you have around 45 minutes or 50 minutes to share with us now for this Panalytics September webinar. It's September the 23rd across all of those countries I mentioned, and we're here to talk about sales culture, something that I hope will be beneficial in your businesses. And I hope you're settled. If you would like to put a question or a comment or an idea in the chat box, please feel free to do that on the right-hand side of your screen. And we will be recording this session, so you will be able to share it with your friends and family or whoever you think might benefit from this. We're talking about developing a sales culture because our thesis today is that if we can make sales part of the fabric of your business, we have a chance of enabling more rapid growth and making it not a hardship, but actually something which drives your business in a very energized way. That's what we're striving for. I'm Mark Ferris. I've spent most of my career in entrepreneurial endeavors. That's not true. I've spent all of my career in entrepreneurial endeavors and most in a business development or sales capacity with some success and many failures. So I hope to share the results of all of that today, as well as the work I'm doing directly with accounting firms in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, North America, and Europe as well. So let's get into this. There are three things I'd like to cover today. First of all, a little bit of background on this topic so that our definitions are clear and we're all talking about the same thing. And then what I'm going to call the three pillars of sales culture, the three things you need to get absolutely right in order to drive that idea of sales culture, and then some resources which may help you on your journey. Before we get into that, a very quick word on Panalytics. We love to help accountants build successful businesses, often advisory businesses, and we have a set of applications, software applications. We're advisors ourselves, and we provide content to support accountants. We deal with a whole range of issues, but here are some of the most common issues we deal with: workflow, capacity creation, succession planning, development of advisory products, lead generation, and of course that leads us into the work we do with the sales functions of accounting businesses. And we like to work with accountants who are ambitious, who want to build their businesses, and who embrace change, because we feel the profession is changing rapidly, and unless you embrace that change, it may be difficult to keep up and take all of the many opportunities that are available to accountants now. So we have a bullish view on the profession. Now, we're talking culture today, and on the screen you can see some photographs which might make you think of a particular country to which you might like to travel. You probably have traveled there. Remember, travel is that idea of going to different places for fun or business, not something many of us have done of late. So we'll do some vicarious traveling through this presentation. What I want to stress here is we can see some images which emphasize the culture of this location. We can see a person, and he seems to be on a gondola going down a canal next to some al fresco dining in a trattoria with buildings that look quite old and plants dangling down. And then we have the rather delicious looking, I think it's spaghetti. I wonder if you've all had lunch. You'll see a meatball there. And some of these images will help you conjure, of course, the culture of Italy. And what I want to stress here is that this wasn't built in a day like Rome. In fact, this was built over many years of habits and behaviors and common collective thinking and philosophy by people that became this thing we think of as Italian culture. Of course, if we go across the world to a very different place. We can look at the arts works, we can look at how the people behave. We have the beautiful design on the kimono and the decorative, but probably quite functional umbrella. And we get a very different sense of the culture here. Again, though, in this very ancient country, it was built over many, many years. And when we talk about culture generally, we're talking about ideas, customs, and behaviors of people. When we talk about sales culture, we're really talking about those things which are designed to drive growth in a business. And the point is that this isn't developed in minutes or because a leader said, hey, let's have a sales culture. That's not how it happens. It's habits and desire and behaviors and icons which make culture a real thing in a business. And that's what we want to explore today. I want to start by killing some myths, at least I believe they're myths related to sales. And here we go. This is one of them, probably the most frequent, which is that you're either born a salesperson or you're not. You either have these unique skill sets, the gift of the gab, and these other skill sets associated with sales. But if you don't have them, well, you're done. You'll never acquire them. And that's all sales is anyway, is those particular skills. So don't try and compete with those people who have them. I think that's an absolute myth, and we'll get into that in more detail later. Here's another one we often hear in accounting businesses is, I'm an accountant, I'm not maybe the founder or the partner, but sales is not my job. It's other people's job. It's the partner's job, perhaps. Maybe there is a sales group. Maybe there's a person dedicated to sales. But we don't do sales over here in accounting or payroll or bookkeeping or tax or compliance. That's not something we do. And I will argue that particularly in today's professional services environment, everyone has some responsibility in this area. And the opposite is what we hear sometimes from the partners who say, well, I'm not going to give the team anything to sell because they'll never get it right. They don't know how to sell, and they've never sold anything anyway. Right now, this is a defeatist attitude, which will probably, if there is any enthusiasm for selling, it'll make it go away very quickly. And it's probably incorrect because everyone can learn the skills, as I mentioned before. And here's another myth that we hear is, look, we're an effective accounting business. We offer good service. We have good people. We have good clients. We use software very well. We just have to show up and sales will happen. Well, to some degree that may be accurate, but not to the degree that it will meet the average growth goals of the average accounting business. We have to work harder. And I believe that things have got more difficult in the last decade or so in terms of the acquisition of new work. Sales will not just happen. Here's one that someone said to me the other day. As an accountant, as a professional services person, I actually avoided the need to ever having to sell in my career because that's what we do. I'm a technician. I go out and do technical work and other people need to sell. It's not part of my job description. Well, that would be nice, but I'm afraid I don't agree with it. I think that part of the world of being any practitioner, any craftsman, any tradesman is that you have to learn how to interact with customers and derive new business from them. And here's a view that a lot of people have of sales itself, which I completely disagree with. They say, well, sales is actually persuading people to do things they don't want to do. That sounds really unpleasant, isn't it? And I think accountants suffer from this idea. They feel that what they have to offer is either not valued or not valuable. And so they're actually trying to thrust it upon people who really don't want it. And so it becomes this awful specter. And that's why sales acquires the reputation of some kind of dirty word, which is sad because sales is a wonderful thing. In fact, if we can turn this on its head and say, what if we actually felt obliged to tell people about what we do because we know it's so important for them. We know they need it. And it would be rude not to tell them what we have to offer and get them to engage with us, right? We turn the equation on its head And that's what I think we should strive for when we talk about sales. And those companies with a sales culture are probably ones who certainly don't subscribe to these myths at all. Now, I'm grateful always for Australia and New Zealand's active participation in the polls. And we're going to start with a very simple one. And it simply says, we have a strong sales culture in our business. We have a strong sales culture. We're going to get into what this means exactly, but some of you will say, absolutely, mostly, not really, or definitely not. Can I ask, please, Jono, thanks for your help today, to open up this poll, and we'll get a sense of what this audience feels about the sales culture in their business. Is it strong? Would you say it's absolutely strong? Would you say it's mostly strong? Not really. And the responses are flooding in. And thank you for this active participation. Actually, I did this in Europe last night. I'm going to give you another 5 to 10 seconds. There's quite a lot of responses coming in now, and it's always interested to compare by continent. And let's give this another 3 seconds, Jono. 3, 2, 1. Right. Well, we have a winner. We have a winner. A last entry there, right on the deadline. And the winner is not really. So that's not particularly good, is it? Because that's below the line. We'd like to be above the line. The second place was up at mostly. And congratulations to just a couple of you who said absolutely. And I'm sorry for that, the couple who said definitely not. But the winner is not really. About 50% are in that camp, which tells me we have a little work to do. Again, thank you for your participation. I'm going to move into now the bulk of our presentation today, and the 3 pillars that I'd like to discuss. And the first one is clarity. We're going to come to this in some detail in a second, and then we're going to talk process, and we're going to talk people. Clarity, process, and people. I believe these are the pillars of the development of a sales culture. Let's look at clarity first. Now, one of the questions we want to be really clear on in our businesses is why sales is important. I mean, maybe in some businesses, it's not that important. Maybe we can get away without having to do much sales, but in most of our businesses, it's critically important. It's what drives us forward. It puts money in the bank, etc. And I want to suggest that these are some of the areas we need to get clear on to explain why it's important. One is simply the goals of the business. And there's some high-level goals listed there, the revenue goals, the profitability. And if I'm going to grow this business, is it coming from my existing clients, or is it coming from new clients that I'm going to acquire? And the next thing I want to be absolutely crystal clear on is what we sell, and perhaps what we don't sell. And we quite often find in our work with accounting businesses that there's some blurring between the services that they ought to be selling and the ones that they desperately want to sell. It's not completely clear. And how are we pricing those? If your team is not clear on those, it's very difficult for them to embrace this idea of sales. And likewise, who is it that we want to sell to? And of course, who don't we want to sell to? How do we define these target clients? Are they businesses of a certain size in a certain industry with certain needs? Do we know them well? Are they located near us? What kind of other attributes do these target clients have? And we need to get really, really clear on that if we're going to engender this sales culture. And the other thing that I want to comment on here is that the needs of the profession and the needs of accounting firms have evolved. They continue to evolve. And there was perhaps a time when an entrepreneurial accountant could start their accounting firm and put their name on the door, and new clients would be easier to obtain. But in this environment with competitive pricing pressure and much more competition, both onshore and offshore, it's become more difficult to acquire new clients. So the risk has shifted. It used to be that the entrepreneur could assume all of the risk of growth of the business, and the accountants might not have to assume any of that risk. But I think that's changed. Everyone has a responsibility to contribute to the growth of the firm. And so those are the changing needs of the profession. Let me give you an example of this. This is a firm I'm working with on the west coast of the United States, pretty simple stuff. They were a $1 million firm in the past 12 months. They want to be a $1.2 million firm, 20% increase in 2021. They would like to increase their net income, which they feel is still low, but they want to get it up by a couple of percent. There's a variety of reasons for that. And they think that this new revenue, that's $200,000. So 15% of that, or $30,000, will come from their existing clients, upselling, and 85% will come from new clients that they're acquiring. Now, these numbers are on the whiteboard in the conference room. Well, they don't use the conference room much anymore, but they are visible where everyone understands them and acknowledges them. In terms of product, they have gone and redefined their packages that they provide. They do provide tax and compliance services. They've got 3 tiers of package. They've properly priced them, and they've defined exactly what people get inside there. But the interesting advisory solution that they have happened upon in the last year is this idea of estate planning, because they've got a lot of high net worth and aging people among their clients. And so they have a project-based $5,000 appraisal of your needs, and then some kind of annual fee to maintain the estate plan once implemented. And in the course of this, they also decided not to pursue capital raising. This is something that they did try and pursue in the past because of being located near a number of businesses, young startup businesses trying to raise capital. They often didn't get paid for that, and they found it a very barren exercise. So this product is pretty clear in the minds of the entire team now. And as regards the target client, they've got much clearer on this as well. Because they want to chase down those estate planning families, they're looking for families of means with a variety of asset classes and complex structures, because they can unravel those from a tax mitigation point of view. And then numerous stakeholders, multiple heirs and people invested in the family assets, and probably families who have treated asset protection as a low priority item up to now, because there could be opportunities to remedy that. So these are some of the issues on which this business got clear. And they recognized then that in the light of their business and the accounting profession, they had to invest in training on a whole variety of issues, because it wasn't obvious that everyone knew the language of estate planning, for example, and could convincingly ask questions of their clients and identify opportunities. So they have invested in these kinds of training, and they've also developed some incentive plans which make people want to sell over and above just contributing to the business, and a bit more on incentive plans to follow later. So that's how this particular firm has developed clarity on these key issues, and that engenders a sales culture. Let me ask you to participate in another poll, please. And it's also a simple one. Our team can clearly describe our goals, products, and target customers. So to what extent can the people in your firm properly and clearly describe those things? Some will say absolutely, mostly, not really, or definitely not. Let's open the poll. Thank you, Jono. Give you 10, 15 seconds for this. And the results are coming in fast and furious. We have a dead heat now, but I suspect that's going to be broken. Yes, it's been broken. Don't overthink these questions. They're designed for spontaneous response. You can think them later. I'm going to give you another 3 seconds here, and let's close up the poll. Okay, so look, I'm taking a little bit of good news out of this, because we have mostly as the winner, around about 52% on mostly, so slightly more than half of you. And not really, however, is the second highest there. We have a couple on definitely not, and nobody on absolutely. That's fascinating, because in the earlier poll, a couple of you said we most definitely have a sales culture, but you are not saying absolutely our team can describe our goals, products, and target customers. So I'm going to try and reconcile that data in my head as we proceed now to the second pillar of the sales culture that we're discussing today. And this is process. And honestly, this is probably the biggest area. You know, if I think back to that delicious pasta dish that we looked at before, the Italian spaghetti, and I think about all of the processes associated with that dish, probably the idea of the families growing the tomatoes and treading them before bottling them in some sort of ceremonial environment, and then storing them in someone's garage, and then labeling them and selling them. And that love and affection goes into the creation of the food and the recipes that have been handed down through many years. It's not just the end product, but the process which helps to get us there. Yes, I am hungry, I guess. Now, look, as accountants, we have this remarkable opportunity to work very closely with our clients on important stuff, the stuff which drives their businesses and their personal affairs. We have access to all of the data over many years typically, and we interact with them frequently, particularly even on compliance work around filings and so on. So isn't it logical that we would integrate into the workflow sales activities? This could be as simple as getting your team to spend 30 minutes or an hour once a month, once a week perhaps, to go through a list of clients, perhaps A-list clients, and say, are there opportunities emerging from this work we do? And I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying, yeah, right. Try doing that with my team in tax season when everyone's too busy and all they wanted to do is move on to the next return, right? Well, yes, it is challenging. In Panalytics, many of you I see are advocates of the 18-step workflow process. We have a whole list of resources on this, which try to weave this opportunity identification activity into the general workflow of your businesses and find checklists that you can go through during the process. Now, there's various ways to do this. Sometimes it has to be mandated. That's one way to think about it. I think if it's made collaborative and it can be challenging and there can be rewards, then I think that there is a way to do this. But that's the first place to start. Now, we're also big believers in Panalytics about frameworks, because one thing accountants might ask you is, well, you're asking me to find new opportunities in a whole bunch of clients. Well, where do I start? How do I even evaluate? I can look at the financials, which may tell some of the story, but not all of the story. I'm going to give you a very quick example of a Panalytics framework, which we've rolled out to many clients in our work. It starts with understanding the attributes of a whole range of businesses. So if I just think of a client in your head right now, just think of one of your clients, the ownership structure, who owns it, the size of the business, the locations of the business, the business model, how do they make money, the employees, a whole variety of attributes which start to help us understand the basics of this business, and it helps us to identify opportunities as well as the market, because just like you, your clients are competing with other businesses and they're trying to attract customers. And if we understand a little bit about that, we'll never understand it as much as our clients, but if we understand it, we can help them. And then where they're trying to go, because as accountants, we are part of the journey of where our clients started and where they're trying to end up, their destination or their purpose. And the more we can contribute to that, the more they will view us as providers of additional services. We also really like to understand their goals. We in Panalytics are particularly interested in this topic. We have a tool called Strategize. I know some of you are learning this. What it tries to do is explain the importance of different goals in a business. So here we have revenue. 65% of the total allocation is towards revenue, which tells me this business is all about growth, revenue growth, top line growth, much less concerned about bottom line growth and efficiency or capacity or succession planning. Whereas this business has a very different profile. The predominant goal here is around profitability, much less so around top line growth, but they're concerned about capacity and lifestyle too. And here we have a business which is really interested in using their resources more wisely, better use of their labor or other assets in the business to create more efficiency. Profit and revenue are of equal importance in this business, and lifestyle is of importance to the owners of this business as well. So if we can get clarity on that, there's a whole lot of science which sits behind this. If we can get clarity, we can help these clients and identify opportunities as part of this framework. Of course, it's not enough just to set goals. We've actually got to go and do stuff, which is about planning and then taking actions based on those plans. Some of you I know are users of growth equation. This particular example is one which is focused on the profit of a business. If we understand that, we can look at the drivers of profit. What is creating profitability in this business? What can we change which will result in an increase in profit? And you see some examples there: revenue per existing customer, expenses, costs of goods sold, and so on. And over on the right here, if we understand what those drivers are, we can model the extent to which they will contribute to an increase in profitability. We can do this for revenue. We can do this for enterprise value by using this growth equation. And this helps us to get clarity on where there may be opportunities. So if I were one of your team members and I had access to tools which presented opportunities in a clear way, I may be more inclined to look for sales opportunities in the business. The final area of the framework is, again, we can set goals and actually make plans, but unless we go and do what we say we're going to do, then we're not going to achieve those goals or our vision and purpose. So accountability is the act of ensuring that people do what they said they were going to do. So there's a framework. I'm not saying it's the only framework. It's one that our clients are enjoying using, and their team, extended team, is using. There are many ways to do this, but I think there should be some framework in order to identify opportunities. More on that later. Now, sales meetings, this sounds so obvious, but you know, you have to trample the tomatoes in order to make the tomato sauce, right? It's obvious as well, but it's really, really important. I think sales meetings should be frequent. I think there should be a degree of formality about them. There should be a sense that we're about to talk about something important now, because this is the lifeblood of the business. It's how we grow our revenues. It's also how we start relationships to serve clients. And one thing we do in sales meetings is review the status of the various opportunities just by identifying. I was with a client earlier, West Coast of the United States, earlier this morning, and we worked out that they had no clue what opportunities were currently surfaced in their business among existing or new clients. They kind of were written on a bunch of notes and telephone notes, etc., and they couldn't pull them all together. And then if we can pull them all together, we can prioritize them, because where should we spend our time? And if we can do that, we can start to create accountability. Who's involved here, and who's going to progress these opportunities through to closure? We in Panalytics are fans of sales pipeline. This is our sales pipeline that many of our clients are using. We didn't invent sales pipelines, of course. There's many of them out there. We feel this one works well for accounting firms. Let me give you a few highlights. Of course, we have to be able to identify who we're trying to sell to, which might yield some interesting information. Why are they all in hospitality? Why are they located near our office? Where did these leads come from? We can delve into those kinds of issues. But I mentioned priority before, and there's an algorithm in this which calculates priority based on a number of factors, including who the client is, whether they're a target client, when this deal will be closed, the size of the deal, what product is being sold, and some other factors. And so it computes which are the most, the deals that you should be prioritizing. Of course, we said we need to get really clear on our product. And sometimes I see all kinds of stuff in this column from accountants. They make it up as they're talking to the client on the phone. Yeah, we can do some tax planning, but we'll also do your returns, and we'll file something for you, right? And it becomes a mess. And if we do that, people get confused about what they're buying, and your team gets confused about what they are selling. And this is probably one of the most important points, because a lot of things in sales are tactical. It's about the next step. What do I need to do next? Call the person and resend the proposal. It can be as tactical as that, but it's important. And if we're not crystal clear on that, we're unlikely to be really effective in sales. And if we're not effective in sales, why would you have a sales culture that's vibrant in the organization? Of course, we want accountability. Who's in charge of this? Who's going to make this happen? Right? Some people will seek that accountability. They'll want to shine. Other people will shy away from it. However, we need this if we're going to succeed with sales. And we want to put some numbers on this, because after all, part of business success is about understanding the numbers. And so here we have $79,000 of possible revenue. But if we probabilize that, we're not going to get it all. Remember, a lot of sales is about failure. We don't sell everything that we set out to sell. But if we get our processes right, we can increase the probabilities. And we're also very interested in the close dates, because I bet you in your organizations, you have some lingering sales opportunities which have been there for days, weeks, months, maybe even years in some cases. And we keep telling ourselves, well, yes, as soon as he gets married and has that overseas trip and comes back and then buys the other business he's going to build, then he's going to give us a lot of work, right? Well, 2 years has passed and it hasn't happened. So we need to reassess how we're approaching that. So sales meetings are important as part of our sales culture. Now, as we said, a lot of sales is about follow-up. It's about taking the next step. It's sequential. And if we can make that easy for our teams, we have a better chance. Let me show you how we are tackling this for our clients, and they are tackling it in their businesses. Proposals. Just the other day, I was told that, well, we really don't get proposals out very quickly, and sometimes we don't get them out at all, and we see work evaporating because we weren't able to organize our thoughts and put them into some kind of intelligent template, right? So look, the good news is that a lot of this can be templated, right? Most of what you're selling, if we are clear on the product, and that's a big if we're clear on the product, then we can template a lot of the proposal material and we can present it in a way that's attractive. We have our own solution made available to accountants here. This is a screenshot. You can put anything you want there in terms of images. You can put a bowl of pasta if you like, but we should make it attractive and we can emphasize our brand. Now, even though it's templated, especially those of you who are interested in advisory services, we should also personalize and customize, right? Because we are trying to gain the trust of these clients. We want them to like us and want to work with us. And that comes from understanding, showing that we understand we understand their businesses, and we need to customize our templates in order to do that. So it could be as simple as a cover note. Again, this is from the solution we offer. It could be as simple as that, and we could make it much more in-depth as we talk about their particular business needs. We need to get really clear on the scope of work, because this helps us to price properly. It helps us to be clear on how we're going to resource deals. It makes things really clear for the client as well. They know exactly what they're getting, and your chances of selling are much better if the client is clear on what they're getting. So we can template this. Again, if we're clear on the product, then it's easy to articulate the scope of work with precision. And we also, proposals are about pricing. And I often hear accountants saying, well, yeah, but there's clearly an opportunity, but I have no idea how to price it. I mean, do I ask for, is it $5 grand or $3 grand or $7? So we need to create rules, and we need to create formulae around some of that with flexibility as well. And of course, in Panalytics, we try to get accounts to price up front on a fixed basis. Some accountants are afraid of pricing, and they also are afraid of promotions and offers. Every other business is happy to say, buy one, get one free type of thing, but accountants are very resistant to that. This is an example, a real example, where a client sold a business valuation for a particular business, but he then said, actually, I'll also develop the investment memorandum as well, notice that the prices here are $8,000 and $9,000. But if you get both of these, you get a discount, quite a significant discount. And that's an incentive for this client to buy. There's also an incentive built in, which is if you pay up front, there's some reduction in price. Why shouldn't we be doing that? And you need a proposal format like the one I'm showing here, which allows you to quickly display price and for clients to act on this. And payment, do you spend a lot of time chasing payment in order to start the work? And there's also a risk of bad debt sometimes, right? So if we can provide easy payment options, multiple payment options, we have clients in 13 or 14 countries last time I checked, and there are different payment regimes in each of those countries. So we have to offer this in a way that they can pay in multiple ways. Credit cards are one of the most frequent. And then finally, on this making follow-up to sales simple, we're talking here about closing the deal. That's often evidenced by a signature after there's reference to the terms and conditions which govern the contract you're entering into. So if we can pull all of that into one place, we have a powerful set of tools and processes which ought to make it easy for your extended team to want to participate in sales. And if they want to participate, we have the possibility of building a sales culture. If everyone decided in Italy 400 years ago, we actually don't like pasta, we wouldn't have that as a major part of the cuisine today. Luckily, it didn't happen. Would you please participate in another poll? And building on what we've just discussed, I'm going to ask you whether your sales processes make it easy for your team to participate in sales. Do those processes make it easy for your team to participate in sales? Some of you will say absolutely, somewhat, not really, definitely not. Please respond regarding your sales processes and how easy they are for your team to follow. Another enthusiastic response here. We have a winner emerging, but there's always a few. I can sense that some people deliberate their responses more than others. Don't overthink this. Be spontaneous, be bold. Right. Another couple coming in. I'm going to give this a couple more seconds because we have a winner. Thank you. Another late entrant right at the end there. So the winner here, 57%, is not really. I'm a little disappointed with that. I thought somewhat would prevail. Somewhat is in second place, 36%. Definitely not. Thank you for your honesty. By the way, no one can see these results, and nobody in this call is absolutely satisfied that their sales processes are making it easy for the team to participate in sales. And that is telling and means we can improve in this area, which is good to know. Let's go to our final pillar of sales culture, which is people. And obviously, when we talk culture, we are inevitably going to be referring to people. Now, I want to make the point up front that sales is not this monolithic endeavor, which is only a few people can do it. It's multifaceted. There are many different skill sets. Let's look at an example. So let's think in your businesses, right? You've got your existing clients, some of whom, not all of whom, are suitable for new services and are targets that you might want to go out to, right? And some people in your organization are very good at identifying them. It could be those frameworks that we talked about. It could be because they ask good questions and they listen and they are curious and they want to do really well for the clients, right? So there are people who are particularly good at that. And if we find that target client, we can then arrive at a sense of what they need. Maybe it is estate planning. Maybe that's exactly what they need in order to mitigate risk in their lives and in their business, right? And if we understand that, we can translate that need into our language, which is probably our products. It's the opportunity that we have and what we can offer them. And if we get pretty clear on that, some people in your organization are good at reaching out. I'll take him to lunch. I'll give him a call. I'll send him an email. I'll set up a meeting. Some people love to do that. They want to be out talking to people, and others don't. And if we get that meeting, if we have the opportunity to speak to the client, we may find that our understanding of their needs is incorrect, and we may have to evolve that understanding. Again, we have to listen, and we have to learn and ask intelligent questions. And if we do that, we may be in a position to propose business, to actually put a commercial proposal in front of the client. And that takes a lot of skill along the lines of what we just discussed, because we have to describe how we are going to help them. Now, if we do that, it's quite likely that your client will say, well, maybe I kind of like this, but I'm not sure. I have a bunch of questions. Some of those are procedural, and we're good at quickly responding to those questions. Sometimes we have to engage other people in our organization. Maybe it's the tax expert, the senior accountant, the partner. Maybe it's about relationship building. But we have to go to our colleagues and say, hey, help me out here. I could use your help for this particular client. And that in itself is a skill. And another skill then is when we go back to the client and say, okay, look, we will extend the time frames for this. We will do it slightly better, but we want to stick with the fee, and we'd like you to pay half up front. And those are terms that are to be negotiated. And some people are brilliant at that, which gets us to the near final stage of this, which is the closing of the deal. And that's where some people are brilliant at creating some competitive tension and some urgency on the clients, and they can get the deal closed. They're persistent, and it happens. Of course, there's an administration piece of this as well, because then we've got to generate invoices. If we're not using sophisticated tools, we might have to archive contracts, get things signed, etc. And that can sometimes sales break down at that point. And then we have to go to our delivery team. And this can be tricky because you've just sold this wonderful thing that you've been working on for months, perhaps. And you say to your colleagues, great news, guys, I just sold this. And you don't want them to look at you and say, oh, that's more work. And we don't really, we don't want to do that. Don't look at me. That can't be my client. Take it somewhere else. We want them to be excited in the way that the salespeople are excited about this. And so there's a whole myriad of skill sets there. The point is that we don't expect one person to do all of this. Some people can participate in sales and focus on finding opportunities among the target clients. Others are good at closing or negotiating terms or drafting proposals, etc. There's a place for everyone in this sales process. The other things we believe strongly in is that if we can collaborate among our teams, then we have a better chance of getting this done. It's kind of obvious, right? But if people who are charged with business development can easily interact with people doing the work in accounting and create desire to find these new opportunities, then we have a better chance of succeeding. And don't be afraid of a little competition. Why, if you can divide your business into multiple groups by partner or something, why not have competition? That is generally a healthy thing. And remember, we have to keep coming back to what we said early on, is to get clarity on that this is important. It's not just important for profitability or growth. It's also important to sustain this business and be relevant to our clients, and everyone needs to play a role. Incentives, I've seen many different shapes and forms, some more successful than the others. There are those where people can assume partnership based on the achievement of certain goals. That's obviously a broad, long-term goal. There can be much more tactical goals. I was with a firm in Pennsylvania recently, United States, and they actually link the incentives to bringing in new business, but they link it to how many billable hours that person had in the last 30 days. That's interesting, isn't it? So there's an incentive not only to bill more hours, but also to find more work from those clients. It was quite an interesting model. And some accountants get to keep 10%, 20% of the first year fees from a new client they bring on, or from a particular project which they sell into the business. And you know, when you start thinking of sales culture, you start hiring and training a little bit differently. when this becomes an important part of your business, you're less concerned about the technical skills and how they'll fit into the organization. Of course, those are important things, but you start thinking, is this a person who can participate somehow in some of the aspects of sales that we are talking about here? And of course, any endeavor in any business is to review progress. Can you imagine the chef who made that pasta? Can you imagine them tasting along the way periodically to see if it needs a little more salt, a little more of this, or perhaps a lot more red wine for flavoring, right? So we need to review progress and make the necessary changes along the way, because that is highly strategic. If we can understand what's working and what's not working, then we can get better at deciding what leads we want to attract, how we process them, where we should prioritize, who's really good at this, and what we should emphasize going forward. So there are some ideas for you on how people can be trained to be more successful in this area of sales in your business, and thereby create a sales culture. To finish up, and I'm grateful for your patience and for spending time with us today, we like to offer something on our webinars. We like to offer something that we absolutely believe will add value into your businesses. And I have no hesitation with that. So therefore, I'm not selling, and it's dead easy for me to present this slide. We have here the Sales Up program. Up, by the way, ingeniously stands for Unlock Potential. How clever is that, right? So Sales Unlock Potential program, a bit of a mouthful. What we want to do here is work not just with the partners. This is not, a culture is not just about the leadership. It's about involving ourselves with extended teams, maybe not everyone, but people who are interested and want to contribute to this, to identify and execute upon sales opportunities. And in the course of that, we'll examine sales processes, because a small shift in those can make a big difference. And we'll be able to increase clarity on goals and make sure they're properly articulated, get clarity on exactly what's being offered in terms of products and services, and exactly to whom they are being offered. Who are the target clients that we want to relentlessly chase down, right? And this will be done through a dedicated Panalytics account manager who will work through a series of discussions and presentations with your team, mindful of the fact that you have busy jobs to do as well. So we've become pretty good through video content, but also one-to-one and group activity in sharing and learning from you as well, but sharing a direction to achieve those things that are listed there. At the same time, there's access to some Panalytics tools, the sales pipeline. I showed you a snapshot of that earlier. And then tools which may help you to structure these discussions with clients. The strategize tool, the goal setting tool, the planning tool, growth equation, and then a vast library and a much better organized, if I may say, library of content in Learning Hub, which is really beginning to blossom into something that's quite organized, I feel. We ask you to invest a modest $750 for 3 months, or $250 a month, right? That's a 90-day program, because we believe in being clear-cut and having firm deliverables in any of our offerings with a finite timeline. This is not about getting involved in something for years and years. It's about trying to solve particular challenges, overcome challenges, or enable opportunities in businesses in the near term. And let's get really serious about that. We like to be serious, because being serious helps us to grow our business, which ultimately enables us to have more fun. So I have no hesitation telling you about that. I hope you'll take it up. We have limited resources on our side, so we're offering 5 of these programs in each of the territories. I think we sold 3 in Europe last night. We have the United States tomorrow. So please have a look at that. Type sales in the question box, and we'll share more information. And with that, I'm going to leave you. Please respond to our webinar questionnaire, which you will see sent to you later. We value your feedback very greatly. In summary, a sales culture takes the pressure off the current sales regime, if we can get other people excited about it and wanting to participate, we have a chance of creating a vibrant, growing organization, which means we can serve more clients and we can achieve what all of the stakeholders need to achieve. It's a function of the clarity with which you can articulate where you are now, where you want to go, and why sales is therefore an important piece of that puzzle. And then the processes are really, really important here. But of course, we need the people on our side. We need them to see the value in this, not just for the business, but also for themselves. If we do that, we can be very powerful as organizations and differentiated from the competition, in the same way that Italy is not Japan and Japan is not Italy, in very positive ways, right? So I'm going to leave you with that thought. I'm going to say thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to seeing you on future webinars. I think Jono has a final poll, but I will sign off. Thank you for your time. See you next time. Bye.